Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and welcome to another episode of Media Matters for Anfield Index. It is Monday, the 30th of June, which means if you are a bit of a football nerd, it is officially the end of the 24-25 season. 25-26 starts tomorrow. It's PSR deadline day, which doesn't bring excitement to many, but transfers certainly do. So we'll get onto everything around that. I'm your normal host, Dave Davis, coming to you from a practically balmy Edinburgh. It's 20 plus degrees and it's not even midday. I am, of course, joined by the renowned and the respected David Lynch, who I'm guessing, is it tops off style in Edinburgh, tops off style in Merseyside as well?
Yeah, it's really nice here as well. Yeah, I think it's getting up to something like 29 later, which is an absolute joke, to be honest. But yeah, it's nice. It's like still being on holiday, so I'm loving that.
It is pretty good. And we always start these pods recently with a bit of an obscure question. I'm not going to ask you to play the guitar again. I think that one's dead. But in the heat, David Lynch, patch journalist, what is the best ice cream you can get in the heat?
Do you know what? I'm partial to a Twister, I have to say. I think they are number one. Fruity, just refreshing. Yeah. In fact, that's genuinely put that in my head for later. I might a little walk round to the shop round the corner and treat myself.
Yellow and green one, that isn't it, with the red
Yeah,
middle.
yeah. The original is the best, absolutely.
Yeah, that is one. I tell you what, I might be wandering around to the shops myself. Hopefully, it is good wherever you are. And we'll get into it, ladies and gents. We'll start where we always do with off the field matters. And as much as everyone's talking transfers, there's a lot happening off the field at the moment. And this one, I don't want to say it came from nowhere, but Liverpool seemed very good at keeping coaching appointments quiet. We had Van Bronckhorst come from nowhere. It wasn't rumoured. Then all of a sudden, Rob Page is appointed head coach of the under-21s, replacing Barry Lutas, who'd been there for donkey's years. This one did just kind of come out the blue, to be fair, though, didn't it?
Yeah, not a name I'd kind of heard in the build-up, or even anyone alluding to. So a complete surprise, to be honest, and one they've done well to kind of keep under wraps. And yeah, a little bit of a surprise one, because you think about what his last job was, and obviously being in senior football there, you'd expect he kind of would want to stay there and maybe look at kind of senior jobs in club football or whatever. But obviously that's not the route he's gone down. He's come to Liverpool to do the 21s, and for them, spoke about Gio Van Bronckhorst being a bit of a coup because he'd had obviously management experience to go into a coaching role. And I think similarly here with Rob Page, he did a decent job with Wales. And I think the thing, speaking to people at Liverpool, that was most appealing from their side of things is that obviously he'd been kind of a youth manager with Wales before he'd been the under-21s manager. So he knows how to work with that kind of age group, but also the fact that he took that then into the first team environment and dragged a lot of those kind of youngsters with him into that. So, you think of kind of the role that Harry Wilson ended up taking on under him, and there are countless others. I think Nico Williams is another one. So a few Liverpool links there as well, actually. But yeah, he's someone who's, shown that he's very good at kind of preparing young players for that next step into first team football. So it's a really good fit, and for him, a great place to work at the academy with a really good setup, and obviously some really, really talented youngsters as well. So on the face of it, looks like a really smart appointment, and one that you hope will work out in terms of, helping players bridge that gap and make the jump up to the first team.
Which is, probably what a lot of people will be looking for the under-21s, the youngsters we've got to do. Is there any that you're looking in the youth sides right now who you're thinking that could benefit from this, that could just, with a bit of help from someone who's got that experience, make the leap into senior football?
I think the obvious ones are the ones who are already kind of around the fringes. So you look at Rio Engamoa, who made his debut last season. Trey Naoni's been close to it as well. So, they're the couple really who you're keeping an eye on, who will be in that 21s group. And the expectation is, can they push for League Cup minutes? Can they do anything there to kind of help out the first team? So, they're the ones really. And they're both still incredibly young for 21s football, by the way. But the idea is to put them there early so that they can get a step closer to men's football. And so, I think they're the kind of main projects they'll be working on is looking after players like that. But there are always a few around there as well who will get surprise opportunities because of injuries and moments where they'll come in that you don't think that they're going to. So his job's to make sure all that group is kind of as close to ready to play for the senior team as possible.
Will be interesting to see how they get on, especially with the pre-season tour, and if they make any bows or get any time in that, it will be one to keep an eye on. And off the field matters a bit different. We're going a bit financial, but it is one that seems to be developing. FSG in this second club, we talked about it the other week, but there does seem to be real legs in this Getafe one, doesn't there? It keeps getting mentioned time and time again.
Yeah, I've not had any kind of real concrete update on where that's up to, really. So we'll just kind of see how that develops. But it's it's just clear, isn't it? They need to get this sorted soon, don't they? I mean, it's such an important facet of what they've kind of built now with Michael Edwards at the head of it and bringing back Julian Ward in that role. They need to get this moving, really. So you'd hope for some kind of move on that. I mean, they'll have been very interested, by the way, to see the developments around multi-club models and what that's meant for Crystal Palace at the moment, the controversy there. So got to be very, very careful about how they do it and kind of what level these clubs are at. And if they are going to be in contention for European competition, you've got to kind of sort that out and make sure they've got all the ducks in a row. But it's, it was the next step of this move, wasn't it? It was the whole reason that Michael Edwards was there. So, they need to get that going, really, and give him something to get his teeth into.
It's interesting as well with reports that Levante, another Spanish club on the radar, top-level Portuguese clubs as well. Does it surprise you at all that it is clubs of a certain level? Because when they looked at Bordeaux, they were in the second league in France, whatever that's called. But now it does seem like La Liga clubs or teams like that can be a certain standard. Do you think that's come into the mix as well?
Yeah, I think with Bordeaux, it was just the case it was a distressed asset because at the end of the day, that is a club that should be playing at a higher level anyway. And I think if FSG had gone in, the likelihood is they'd have had them back in Liga and pretty quickly, really. So, I think they were always kind of looking for a top flight club. It was just that was a specific kind of opportunity, really. But they obviously see opportunities elsewhere as well and possibilities to add to the portfolio. So, yeah, just about kind of getting it done now and seeing which one's the most viable opportunity. But as you say, at the moment, that feels like it might be Getafe, but we'll see whether they get it done or not.
Yeah, we'll see if it evolves in the near future. And I suppose why we're talking finance as well, it is PSR deadline day, if you want to call it that. Is there a feeling sort of from you for Liverpool and wider Premier League that it might almost be a quiet day today because we're reaching that year end, but from tomorrow onwards, clubs will know where they are or aren't financially, so stuff might really start to evolve?
Yeah, I get the sense that there's not as much panic amongst Premier League clubs today in terms of as there was last time around. I mean, you saw a few of them, Newcastle, one of them involved in kind of fire sales to make things right before the deadline. You've not seen many stories that suggest many clubs are in that position so that we're going to see kind of similar panic or opportunities pop up or anything like that. So from Liverpool's perspective in terms of that, it doesn't feel like anything's kind of happening there or any clubs are really worrying about the positions. So, not sure they're going to have a fire sale to take advantage of. But I think for Liverpool, maybe kind of this second phase of business now bleeds into this next PSR period. And, they've done everything they've done. They've spent massively, haven't they, in this first part. But this second half and this next PSR period is going to be more about kind of sell to buy and kind of balancing the books a little bit. So, but we think that they're going to be active. That is the expectation. So it's going to be kind of, there's going to be exits 100%. And once there are exits, they're going to need to be replaced. So it's going to be busy again. And it's maybe not so much structured around PSR and how that's working. That's just maybe coincidental. But this was always how the summer was going to be structured for Liverpool. But yeah, it's still going to be busy. There's still a lot to do. There's a lot of outs and a lot of ins to oversee in this next period. So it's going to be a crazy time and a lot to talk about, I think.
And we will be talking about it on this show before the chat panel panics around transfers. That will definitely be on the agenda. But also on the off-field matters. I mean, that is a cracking photo there. Saturday evening, wasn't it? Harvey Elliott scores, Tyler Morton assist, Liverpool trio lift the Euros with England under 21s. I mean, that was a brilliant game. I haven't really watched any games, but I did watch that one. Did you catch any highlights or watch it live at all?
Yeah, I watched a bit of the game. I probably watched it from the second half onwards, so caught quite a bit of it. And brilliant for England, by the way, just in terms of to win that tournament back to back says a lot about kind of youth development in this country and the direction it's in where it's been. And you think of a couple of decades back and the debates that used to roll around after every major tournament, but now England are the kind of big dogs in youth football. So, that should be remembered. They've got a pipeline there of serious talent coming through. So that kind of just proved it. And to see Liverpool players and Liverpool youngsters at the heart of it again, I think feels hugely encouraging. Obviously, Harvey Elliott was recruited, but still, that's part of youth football at the moment. That's a big part of it, is your ability to recruit at that level. And then Quansah and Morton, who've both been developed from very, very young ages, both local lads, one from the Wirral, one from Warrington, is, just says a lot about Liverpool and how they are doing at the moment in terms of youth development as well. So really, really good. And they all played a big part in it as well. Obviously, the downside is that probably all three might leave this summer, but I mean, that is also part of having an academy as well, that you accept that not everybody's going to make a sustained and prolonged impact on the first team. Some of them are going to have to move on to have good careers, but that is also worthwhile for the club and for the players.
And it does sound almost harsh on a way to finish this story, because it's a great photo. It's been a great tournament for all three of them. But the longer the tournament's gone on, this has realistically added to the value of the three, hasn't it? And Liverpool will be aware of that. I mean, sounds horrible, but probably unlikely all three are at the club next season, if any.
Yeah, absolutely. This is it. It kind of strengthens Liverpool's hand in negotiations. I mean, you look at Harvey Elliott, probably the player of the tournament, really. And so, if that had been a Spanish kid who's burst onto the scene is the player of the tournament in the under-21 Euros, you say, how much Barca or Real Madrid or whatever going to sell him for would be absolutely outrageous. So, we just know how good he is, and again, I don't think Liverpool should be giving him away this summer, as much as his prospect for minutes is not great, and he has that tough decision to make about whether he does stay and fight or whether he moves on. Liverpool shouldn't be accepting a low fee for him, because he's a unbelievable talent, and he showed that amongst his peers in that tournament. And obviously with Jarell Quansah, he is moving on. That's very close to completion today. But again, they've got a decent fee out of that and a buyback clause. And with Tyler Morton, similarly, he is a top class player, and I think Championship and lower half Premier League clubs should be all over him, really, with the quality he's got. So the academy is going. It's not the dream when you bring these players through. You want them all to be in the first team, but it can also raise you an awful lot of money, and I think you're going to see that with all three players this summer.
Yeah, and we will be talking about them all, unfortunately, maybe a little in the exit part, but we'll see what develops with all three of these. And I mean, this one, off the field matters, and I'm kind of asking you this specifically with a focus from the media perspective, because probably seen the change that they're making, the 3 new innovations, that subs coming off at half-time or at a certain point can be interviewed, that the cameras to a limited extent can be put in the dressing rooms, it seems, but also cameras involved in the goal celebration as well, and suggestions that to keep pace with the US counterparts. What are you making of these 3 changes?
It's just a bit of nonsense, really, isn't it? You don't want to kind of be completely against change and the way things are going, and I don't want to be that old man shouting at the clouds kind of thing, but it does, I don't know, it's just a bit naff, I think, really, a lot of this stuff. And I think if you had Jurgen Klopp about and the dressing room access element of this, he wouldn't be happy about. And I don't know about the camera in the celebrations thing, by the way, if you want to maybe explain a little bit more of that, or if there's a part of this article that kind of shows that.
It's literally, say, allowed to enter the pitch in order to capture close-up footage of goal celebration. This is the madness of it to me. Did a bit of digging on this, and from the US side, the big thing they like in, the EA Sports games, the FIFA stuff, is where the players are up close, and they think that sort of thing will go up well with US audiences.
I mean, they've probably got a point in that you think about maybe the celebrations at Brentford last season, and kind of Liverpool had a phone camera, didn't they, that kind of got in there, and that was really good, to be fair. So I guess that aspect of it, you don't want them to kind of be too invasive in getting close to the players, because you want them to be natural and not think there's a camera on them constantly close that can hear everything they're saying. So there's that aspect of it, but I suppose that will be interesting. I think it's the rest, the kind of halftime interviews, the stuff about the dressing room access. I guess the professionals involved will maybe not absolutely love that, but yeah, this is how things are, and you've got to accept the change, I guess, a lot of the time, because there's not an awful lot you can do about it.
It will be interesting. I do think back, though, to the opening day. Can you imagine if they got Jarell Kwanzaa interviewed at half-time as he's hauled off against Ipswich, like on a slot straight away? It could be. I know it would give, obviously, footage and headlines and stuff to reporters, but it would have been quite interesting, put it that way. We'll see how this bears out for the season. And then, in a sad note, we don't really talk about them too often, but the Liverpool women's team, Taylor Hines, their long-serving, I think she's been skipper, vice-captain, has obviously left on a free transfer. For those that do follow the women's football, this is a bit of a sad one for Liverpool fans, isn't it, this way?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't reflect well as well, you'd have to say, in terms of, what's happening with the project, in terms, obviously, because they came up a couple of seasons ago. They had a really good, strong first season, and the hope was that they were going to build on that. They kind of didn't. It was, they finished lower, and you still feel like they're a million miles away from challenging Chelsea, from challenging Arsenal, being anywhere near Manchester United and Man City as well. So I think it's disappointing from that perspective, really, from a sporting perspective. Really to kind of lose someone who was so important and was a really good player as well. So I guess, does this feel like this Liverpool women's project is kind of leveling out at kind of mid-table in the WUSL? It feels like it a little bit. And I thought the kind of departure of Matt Beard was a bit of a strange one, really, around that. In terms of what were they expecting from him when you compare the wage bills and the money that they put into it in comparison to the other teams who they're supposed to be competing with, really. And I think this is another reflection of that, really, that the club doesn't have the kind of pull and isn't as strong as it should be. And I think, there's not a lot, I think, to criticise the ownership for, but I think in terms of the investment in the women's team, you don't have to spend a lot, or certainly nowhere near as much as you do on the men's team. Get a lot back, really, in the women's side of things. The wages aren't outrageous. The investment in facilities wouldn't be anywhere near as much. I think what they did in bringing them back to Melwood was fantastic, but it just feel like it's kind of stagnating a little bit. So I would like to see them do a little bit more with the women's team. And as I say, I feel like that's kind of symptomatic of that, really.
Yeah, it does feel that it won't be the best of seasons in the offing, but we'll see what happens for the women's team there.